Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto, and today guys we are taking a cheeky look at Litecoin and specifically what is Litecoin and would we invest? So Chris, this is one of those things that will help a lot of new people coming into this space. Although Litecoin has been around for a significant amount of time, people might be scratching their heads thinking, what is Litecoin and what is it all about and why is it such a prominent cryptocurrency? So we're going to get into a little bit, Chris, on what Litecoin is and how it works and all of that kind of good stuff. So if you do find this video useful, guys, hit that like button. We both really do appreciate it. And of course, if you're new to the channel and you're not yet subscribed, do consider subscribing. By subscribing, you're going to be kept up to date with all the various videos and live streams that we do here at Cheeky Crypto, covering many of the different cryptocurrencies within this space. So it is free and you will be kept well informed, so why not? Right, Chris, anything you'd like to add, or should we jump straight over to the desktop and start talking a little bit about what Litecoin is?
Yeah, let's just get straight into Litecoin, Nick. Let's do it.
Fantastic. So ultimately, Litecoin is a cryptocurrency, as you're probably aware, and it is very much a virtual currency or cryptocurrency or digital asset, depending on what you want to refer to it as. It is peer-to-peer, which means that it is not governed by any central authority. So it's unlike the fiat currencies that you see today or anything like that, or centralized currencies trying to aim towards decentralization. Litecoin is very much decentralized peer-to-peer. So the currency merely passes directly between people, right? So I can send Litecoin to Chris, Chris can send Litecoin to me and so forth, and it's all recorded on a distributed ledger. So it acts as a means for people to pay each other around the world without having to kind of process a transaction via someone like Visa or MasterCard, or even using a bank of some kind. So it's very quick and easy, at least quicker than the traditional financial system, slower than some other new, more modernized cryptocurrencies, but nonetheless a pretty good and cheap way about conducting payments. It was actually founded and created by a guy called Charlie Lee, and founder basically Charlie himself really had recognized a great potential within cryptocurrencies and cryptography back when Bitcoin first kind of launched, and he was really into Bitcoin at the time, but did see some potential in there to maybe make some improvements, and he did notice some inherited, I guess, limitations, Chris, with Bitcoin at the time, and Bitcoin was relatively slow to transfer and quite expensive if you were to routinely use it as a method of transaction, which is something you just don't tend to see too much of this day, because it has Bitcoin has created or become so expensive that the fees are also incredibly expensive too. So it's not exactly the best way to be transacting anymore, even though it was originally designed for transactions. It seems to have kind of gone past that now. But Charlie Lee ultimately did understand that these were not the desirable traits within a currency, and so Lee designed Litecoin to produce more blocks than Bitcoin and to give it a higher maximum supply. As such, it would be faster and also more easily readily available than Bitcoin as well. So pretty interesting stuff. And ultimately, the digital currency has struggled with making inroads into Bitcoin's popularity, as many have as well, which is tend to why we see that term, Chris, altcoin, right? It's an alternative to Bitcoin. And with it being difficult for many people to see past Bitcoin, as it was the very first cryptocurrency, it can be a little bit problematic. But however, the technology behind blockchains, they do evolve, right? And Bitcoin is definitely being left behind a little bit. And there is the potential for many people to become frustrated when trying to use a blockchain. And they can compare it to many other new modernized blockchains, and they are slower, or Bitcoin is slower and more expensive, potentially seeing Bitcoin become more of a store of value, which is what we see today, as opposed to low transaction and everyday payments. So really interesting stuff. Now, Chris, before we kind of get on to the next section, is there anything you'd like to add about why Litecoin was created?
No, I think, it's just like you said, Nick, that there were some limitations with Bitcoin, particularly, the speed of transactions and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think you've covered it off nicely, to be fair.
Excellent. So, Chris, how does Litecoin work, and what is the technology behind it?
Yeah, sure. So due to Litecoin having a block confirmation time of like 2.5 minutes, its transactions are much faster than Bitcoin. And Nick, we've talked about it quite a lot. When I've transferred Bitcoin, it can take hours for each transaction between two parties to be recorded on the blockchain, really. So it's scary when you're transferring particularly large sums of money, right? So yeah, that's one element. It is built upon the same sort of fundamentals as Bitcoin. Both Bitcoin and Litecoin can be mined, and as a result, the block can the orphaned block can occur. Orphan blocks are created when two miners mine a block at roughly the same time. Both blocks are initially accepted by the chain, but later on one block, basically one block is rejected. It makes use of the segregated witness, SegWit, to reduce basically the chance of this happening. Another Litecoin technology is atomic swaps, which provide interoperability to the blockchain, allowing the exchange of two different cryptocurrencies without actually having to go through an exchange, which is remarkable, really.
It really is. The atomic swaps are absolutely amazing. So it's absolutely crucial this day and age with so many cryptocurrencies that you're able to do those atomic swaps and make it very, very easy and efficient without the need of an exchange. It's absolutely vital. So, Chris, is Litecoin money? Let's take a little look at this, right? So, its intended purpose is to be used as an everyday digital currency. Its speed and relatively low fees attest to this. Its predecessor, Bitcoin, is drifting even further away from being a practical use in any sense of the word. Bitcoin's getting further and further away from being that that transactional coin, whereas Litecoin is more affordable and has those lower fees, with also the transaction speed also being much faster. Now, it's making headway towards being a store of value in terms of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is definitely starting to appear to just be that kind of store of value, right? Digital gold, if you will. Whereas Litecoin just simply isn't really following that suit. So it's more to be used, I guess, Litecoin as a way of transacting, to be able to use it as if it were a real currency, just digitalized. So that's really nice to see. Now, in terms of fees and expenses, Chris, at the time of recording this video, the average transaction fee stands relatively low in comparison to many of the other projects out there, but definitely not as inexpensive as many of the third generation. So a lot of the third generation blockchains, Chris, are incredibly affordable, and the transaction fees are so negligible they almost don't exist. Litecoin is slightly more expensive than those, but a lot cheaper than some of those first generation blockchains such as Bitcoin. So it does have some use case there. And there is, I guess, a percentage fees. It can be considered like the same way that percentage fees are calculated for credit card companies and things like that. PayPal's a good example of taking a percentage of the transaction, right? So when purchasing Litecoin through an exchange platform, a small fee is always going to be charged, so you do have to bear that in mind as well. I think Coinbase do allow you to purchase quite a bit of it. But there will be a fee associated with that. Now, there are fantastic ways to buy cryptocurrencies with reduced rates, and there are a few platforms that allow you to do this, right? So if you're using a platform like Binance or even Coinbase.pro, or the pro version of Coinbase, your fees are naturally lower than if you were to just use something like Coinbase straight up. Also, there's a platform called crypto.com that sometimes actually give you a full month of no fees at all, in which case you can take advantage of that occasionally. So there are ways to acquire Litecoin without actually having to incur those initial fees. But when you start sending it around, let's say from an exchange to a hard wallet, you will incur the fees then. So yeah, is there anything you want to talk about, Chris, on terms of the fee structure with Litecoin?
Not really. I think, it's like you say, quicker than Bitcoin, but, it isn't going to be the quickest for transaction speed. And I guess with fees as well, it's significantly cheaper than Bitcoin and Ethereum, but, there are some newer cryptocurrencies out there that are much, much faster and much more affordable to make transactions with. So yeah, it's starting to show a little bit of age now.
It is, yeah. So, Chris, the next thing that might be hot on the lips of many people, which will be, can Litecoin be used anonymously?
So, basically, Nick, simple answer is no, I don't believe so. The record of every transaction between parties is always stored on the blockchain. However, it would, of course, be possible to use an alias, for example. So in a way, yes, but then if you're going to exit, you're going to be doing that through an exchange, I would imagine. Unless you're just sending it to a party, where I suppose you could to a point. The record of each transaction does contain numbered wallet addresses from where the coins were stored. However, these are extremely difficult to trace to any one individual, such as LTC does provide a high level of privacy, but it is important to remember that it's not completely anonymous. And what I'm referring to when I say it isn't really is because at some point somebody is going to have to exit on an exchange, right? Or purchase something. And I imagine that, with the identity KYC protocols that most people have to go through to sign up to some of these, there's always going to be a way to find out at least who ended up with the currency at some point and be able to track it, I would imagine, from there. So it is, but it isn't, in my opinion. So always a bit of a grey area. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not to be classed as a privacy coin, something where they actually deliberately withhold pieces of information. Ultimately, yeah, you can track it all, right? So it's on a ledger, so you can see where everything was sent to and where it originated from, and it's just a matter of following the trail, following the breadcrumbs until you find out who sent what to where and to whom. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. And this is the misconception that even Bitcoin had back in the early days, where people were assuming that it was completely anonymous, and the people were using it to launder money or to finance terrorists or whatever, all the kind of FUD that you used to hear back in the day. And none of it's true, because again, you can just track every single transaction and find out where it all originated from. So yeah, absolutely not to believe those rumors. Everything is traceable. It's just it can be difficult and can be time consuming to do so. But tools this day and age are actually designed to do a lot of this tracing for us. And I would imagine that actually in the right hands, people will be able to track transactions very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So, Chris, this then obviously brings us on to the next kind of point, right? Is Litecoin safe? And the digital currency has a number of ways in which it can help to ensure the safety of its coin holders. So, for example, it protects against flood attacks, where spammers would aim to crash the network using a multitude of tiny transactions. It achieves this by making it financially impractical to carry out such attacks. It charges an individual fee for each transaction, so no matter how small that transaction is, you will be charged a small fee, thus making such attacks practically expensive, or really expensive, really, for those bad actors. So it's important to just recognize that. And the use of SegWit technology, it also helps to prevent attacks on users' transactions. And the SegWit works by taking signatures data out of the transaction record, which prevents it from being accessed by hackers. It should be noted that Litecoin's network has never suffered an attack, nor has it been hacked through an exchange, a testament to the measures it has put in place. So it is definitely safe, but we always recommend using and storing your Litecoin on some kind of hardware wallet as well. So definitely don't be keeping your you don't want to be keeping your Litecoin on an exchange, for example, because if the exchange were to get hacked, there's the possibility that they can get access to things that way. And we always recommend, no matter what the cryptocurrency that you have, that you at least investigate using some form of hardware wallet. We like the Ledger devices, and there's usually a link into those in all of the videos that we do here. And yeah, very, very safe. They're disconnected from the internet, and therefore no one can get into your private keys, which is absolutely vital. So yeah, absolutely. I think Litecoin's a very safe place to be using, Chris.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Chris, I guess it's important to talk a little bit about the financial institutions that use Litecoin, right?
Yeah, so you're starting to see this more and more, Nick, with the number of tokens, making it more of a store of value these days. Obviously, not to the extent of Bitcoin. Institutions, financial institutions, are starting to really sort of take note of Litecoin and are starting to invest quite heavily in Litecoin. I mean, Grayscale would be a prime example of that. And we kind of expect this trend to continue and to become more prominent, as the financial landscape is changing in 2021. So for me, yeah, it's a big deal. You're seeing this with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and we're now seeing institutions starting to look at other projects like Cardano, for example. Is there anything you would want to add to this, Nick? I think it's it's a key thing to mention in this video because we are starting to see that activity increase massively.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more I can really add on to what you just said there. There is a lot of financial institutions and just enterprises now looking to hedge against hyperinflation using cryptocurrencies. And Grayscale is an example of a fund that's been set up to invest and diversify amongst a handful of cryptocurrencies. Litecoin is on that list, along with things like Bitcoin, etc. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of financial institutions and institutions in general looking to cryptocurrencies, and they're looking specifically towards the top 10 or 20 or so projects and coins. And Litecoin is definitely in that radar. It has a cap to it, so it's good to be able to know that. So yeah, it's really good to see some institutions finally getting into this space on a much larger scale than they have done in the past. And I imagine that's going to continue quite nicely during 2021. So Chris, this then kind of brings us to the end of this particular video where we say, would we invest in Litecoin? Chris, what's your thoughts?
So we are invested in Litecoin. So yes, we would invest. And I think it's really the financial landscape, which we have sort of touched on through the video. The fact that it's changing, institutions are getting into the space. So yeah, I kind of feel like Litecoin is definitely one of those projects that is going to get sort of picked up, and we're going to see price discovery as institutions start to sort of gobble away at some of the tokens that are in circulation and sort of take them off the market. So for me, it's a yes. It's not really for any other fundamentals other than the fact that it's a store of value. With that said, it isn't a project that's got the highest percentage of, it doesn't take up the highest percentage of our portfolio, but it is definitely in there.
Absolutely. And I'm just kind of flicking through a few things on here because ultimately on CoinMarketCap, it has a pretty decent value. By no stretch of the imagination has it even reached its former all-time high. That's yet to come. It has a market cap at the point of recording this video of $14 billion. And absolute peak of where it was during the last bull run, it was about 19 billion. So it still has quite a bit of growth still in it just to get to its former high. And we'll expect it to obviously smash past its former high level as well. So there's a lot of potential in Litecoin. And as Chris was saying, yes, we're invested. It is an interesting project. Obviously, it has a higher maximum supply than that of Bitcoin. It comes in at 84 million. Whereas Bitcoin is obviously 21 million, but nonetheless, it still has a cap to it, so therefore it is of interest to quite a lot of people. So being 4 times higher, but yet still, if you were to take the price of Bitcoin and divide that by 4, the value does not quite marry up with the value of Litecoin currently. So I think there's still a lot of potential into Litecoin and Litecoin's value actually increasing during 2021. So I think it's a pretty solid investment, Chris.
Yeah, same here.
So guys, if you have found this video useful and informative, do hit that like button. We both really do appreciate it. And of course, if you're new to the channel and you're not yet subscribed, consider subscribing. By subscribing, you're going to be kept up to date with all the videos and live streams that we do here at Cheeky Crypto, and you'll be kept well informed. With all that said and done, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and we'll catch you all in the next one.
Take care.